Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's February 9th, and right now we are looking at the visible satellite imagery. You can see the sun rising across Pacific Northwest. Got the Doppler radars overlaid, some light snowfall across some of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon, the Blue Mountains, portions of western Montana, and some portions of western Idaho as well. You can also see some residual showers into the Puget Sound here this morning. We also had a lightning strike last night across North Seattle, right off North Lake Washington. We're going to take a look at that on the Doppler radar here in a moment. Got quite a bit of attention on social media. First things, there is some light snow going on across some of southern Oregon here, some of the foothills and the higher terrain there. It doesn't take much to make the road slick out there, so just kind of pointing that out. You don't need 6, 12 plus inches to make things deadly out there with the black ice and the refreezing of some of that on the roadway, especially across the higher terrain. And the Blue Mountains also, again, still winter weather advisories going on until 1 p.m. this afternoon, mainly above 4,000 feet, and also just showing you there are some winter weather advisories across eastern Washington, Idaho, and Montana. So click and check things out before you go out and about. Sometimes that very thin layer of slick snow and ice can be even worse than a foot of snow out there. So yeah, slick conditions. Looking at SeaTac so far this water year, about 24 inches, slightly above average. No snowfall to speak of here, as you can see though. And you can see the cold snap at the beginning of January and then the warm up at the end of the month there. Looking at Hoquiam, something similar with the temperature profile, and you can see we're about 7 inches below normal for this point of the year. We can make that up. It's still kind of notable there. And again, the water year starts on October 1st. Now, taking a look at what's going on here, the last night, I want to point out that lightning strike right about there. Boom, you could see that positive strike right near the north portion of Lake Washington. And again, I saw a lot of reports, people hearing that on social media. And then those showers kind of pushed off to the south and east. And then this morning, you can see some residual showers again kicking up, kind of moving into North Seattle as we go through this morning. So I'm not expecting a lightning strike out of that, but you may get a brief bout of some moderate precip with that. And looking at the North American model last night, it did pick up some of that precipitation associated with the lightning strike here, but it didn't show it being too darn right heavy. So that would be a tough forecast to nail that lightning strike there that happened last night. Now, looking at the European, as we go through the day today, you can see this precipitation continue to push off to the south and east as we go through the afternoon hours. Still some light snow across the Oregon Cascades as we go through this evening and tonight. Then the next storm system rolls into British Columbia here, and we're going to develop a low pressure center here. It's not a very strong one, but it could bring some meaningful mountain snow to British Columbia. Then it's eventually going to slide down across western Washington. And as we go through Monday night and Sunday, we might get some convergent zone activity as this low bring some onshore flow and maybe enhance the snowfall Stevens Pass north across the North Cascades. And hopefully, BC can pick up some meaningful snowfall, as I've mentioned already. And then that system's going to push off. Then we'll look at the extended forecast because there's a little bit of a hint of some colder air trying to get down towards the Rockies here, and I'll show you why that is. But first of all, I kind of want to show you the low pressure center coming up here. You can see Sunday night. You'll see it here. It's fairly weak, but it could get blustery, mainly Washington up towards British Columbia, Vancouver Island. And then you see the onshore flow behind that, and that's when the convergent zone activity could be occurring. Now, taking a look here at the total snow-to-chair ratio in inches, let's scroll through today, and you can see maybe we can get a few inches across the Cascades, and again, the Blue Mountains kind of targeted there as well. And then we scroll off in towards Sunday afternoon, and you can see British Columbia starting to pile up a bit of snow here. They definitely need it. They've been down less than a third of their normal snowpack after that atmospheric river and the warm temperatures kind of decimated it. And then you can see as we go through Sunday night, right about there, you can see some of this enhanced snowfall across the central and north Cascades there. So we can bring 12 inches there across Stevens Pass up towards Mount Baker here as well. But, we got to take what we can get here in this El Nino year. It's not been kind so far. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station, click on that link down below to save 10% off. You click on your smartphone, you can click on these individual parameters, and you can bring up these nice graphs here and build your own little forecast. So very fun weather station. Highly recommend it. Taking a look at the GFS. So this is last night's run. We got a wider view of things here. Here's Alaska. There's BC and Washington. Put this into motion. You'll see the next system here rolling up to BC, and then we start to kick that through, and then we start to build this ridge here as we go on into the early portion of next week. And this is going to try to bring some colder air down, but this is not a favorable pattern for any kind of big dynamic snowfall for portions west of the Cascades. It doesn't mean things can't line up perfectly. We could get some snow into the lower elevations. It's just not a very favorable setup. So clearly we've got the ridge in place here, then we've got the north flow behind it, but the Rocky Mountains make a great barrier, and it's hard to push this cold air through the Rocky Mountains and get it out west of the Cascades. That's two big mountain ranges it has to go through, but you could get some of that cooler air into the interior of BC, Washington, some Idaho and Montana here as well, at least according to the GFS. And I'll show you what some of the fantasy GFS runs were showing. You can see some of that cold air trying to make its way out here, but yeah, definitely not a classic Arctic outbreak or anything like that in the extended future. If we go far enough out here, you can kind of see some of this Arctic air building up again across some of the Rockies here, but not making much headway down into the Pacific Northwest. That's kind of the case with any extended GFS run. It's always got something crazy in it, it seems like. Now, looking at the European model, this is last night's run on the left versus yesterday afternoon's on the right. In the same map here, you got Alaska, BC, and Washington. Put it into motion. You can see the low pressure system into British Columbia here. Then we start to build that ridge as we go on in through Tuesday morning. We try to force some of this colder air back down over the area. It's just not that cold. And you can see the last night's run actually shows a little bit more cold air getting out, but this is not the classic pattern where you're getting this cold air spilling out over the British Columbia coastline and back into western Washington or western Oregon here. You can kind of see this northeast flow. That would be more of a dry, cooler air intrusion, and this would be about Wednesday night shown here. So now let's take a look at yesterday afternoon's European run. This is actually looking at the surface, sea level pressure here with 6-hour precipitation and type. If I put this into motion, you'll see the system moving into BC there. You know, what is that, a 1,000 millibar low. They're a fairly weak system, but the pressure gradient is not that bad. So it's going to be a little bit breezy here as we go through the day Sunday, especially Vancouver Island and some of BC, western Washington, getting a little breezy. And then we kick that convergent zone activity through here and hopefully bring some snowfall to the Cascades. But then we squelch into the future here and we build that ridge, and we got this Arctic air trying to sag down south across the area. And you can't rule out some areas of some lower snow levels here with this next system rolling in through midweek. But it's something we'll be watching closely. You can see that cooler Arctic air mainly behind the Rockies here. And then we start to get a little bit more active though, however, across the Pacific Ocean, scrolling back and forth there. Look at that 955 millibar low, fairly deep trough out here. And it starts to swing frontal systems. Hopefully you can get a vigorous front or two back into the Pacific Northwest, and California may be targeted during this time frame as well. Now, taking a look at the GFS. So this is the wider view of things here. We'll scroll through here pretty quick. There's that BC system there. Colder air tries to filter down, and you can kind of see it. There's a little bit of a gradient here. Some of that colder air tries to spill out, and the GFS wants to throw some fantasy snowfall event here across some of western Washington. But we're going to kind of ignore that for now. If we get better model agreement, we can pay more attention to it as we go through tomorrow. But you can kind of see how the storm track is pointed at California versus on the GFS. So a lot of model disagreement here coming up through the extended forecast. Now, looking at that GFS forecast, we might as well look at it. I mean, it wasn't that far out, but it's very unlikely, and we're just going to have to like bide our time on that one. We'll wait for tomorrow's forecast, but I'm going to show you it really quickly here. You can see that next system here with some of the cooler air trying to leak out. If things lined up just right, it wants to paint some moderate snow there for some of western Washington. Right now, we're just kind of throwing it out. We'll see what things say tomorrow. Now, looking at the accumulated positive snow depth change in inches, and this is yesterday afternoon's European model run here. So you can see maybe a few inches out of this northwest flow that we're going through right now. And then the next system rolls in here, hopefully building some out snow across British Columbia as we go through the day Sunday. See some areas maybe getting up over a foot there, some of the Rocky Mountains, British Columbia also. And as we go through Sunday night into Monday morning, you'll notice maybe central and northern Cascades get a little bit enhanced in some of that convergent zone activity. It's just not painting a lot of snowfall right now for a lot of western Washington, or the Cascades, I should say, of Washington, Oregon. You know, this is not the big classic snowmaker. Then we start to get a little bit more active here, and you can see some bigger snowfall amounts, mainly across Washington and BC again. But, you know, we'll worry about that as we go. You saw the big model discrepancy between the GFS and the European model. Look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. I mean, as of yesterday, they still had us above average for the next 6 to 10 days. Even with that cooler Arctic air, you can kind of see how they keep it east of the Rockies here. In the 8 to 14 day, they're not showing much of that getting out into Western BC, Washington, or Oregon. But again, we'll revisit that tomorrow. We'll try to get some better model agreement on that. Here's the 6 to 10 precipitation outlook, near normal. And some of the storms moving into California through February 18th. And the 8 to 14 day, again, kind of bullseye in the southwest. And some of this trying to creep up into our area as well. Again, we're probably going to have better model agreement by the time we get towards tomorrow between the GFS and the European. Call it a hunch. Taking a look at avalanche danger, there is some moderate across the Cascades. If you're going out and about hiking, heads up, click on these individual locations to get more information. And you can see some Idaho, Montana, some moderate and considerable avalanche danger. Still some avalanche warnings out there near Yellowstone. If we look at the snow tell, not doing too great. Looks like the lower Yakima dropped below 50% here. So cross your fingers. Hopefully we can get some active storm systems in here in the next 2 weeks. Oregon, a couple places increased here, but still most of the state below average. Same thing for Idaho. Not much has changed, and Montana. And over the next few days, just some minor impacts, maybe with some of the slick travel conditions across some of the mountainous areas. Not too much to worry about yet there. So anyway, yeah, hope maybe if you guys saw that lightning strike yesterday, tell me what it was like. It's quite the one big positive strike out there. Just kind of shook everything up there across North Seattle. Places like Kenmore, Bothell, Shoreline probably heard it as well. So, yeah, we'll continue to watch that off in the extended. We'll see if that cold air has any chance of bringing any kind of dynamic weather down here, and then we'll try to see which model's going to win out. Are we going to get more active across the Gulf of Alaska, or are the storms just going to roll into California? How much will the Pacific Northwest be included? All good questions and all things we will look at here as we go through the next couple days. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day. We will do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.